Please be aware that this meeting is being filmed by the Town Council and can be viewed via the Biggleswade Town Council YouTube link. By joining the meeting, you're deemed to have consented to be filmed and to the use of these images and sound recordings for this meeting. Can I please remind members and members of the public that when speaking, not to disclose any personal information of an individual, as this might infringe the rights of that individual and breach the Data Protection Act. If you're joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom meeting functions and do not lower it until you've spoken or it has been lowered on your behalf. For the benefit of residents viewing the YouTube feed, please only switch on your video if you are speaking. I also remind members and officers that the Zoom meeting chat facility must not be used for any purpose during the meeting. I'd also like to remind members to turn off your microphone once you finish speaking, please. So without further ado, we'll go straight on to the first item on the agenda, which is the apologies for absence. Apologies from Councillor Whitaker. I think everyone else is attending. We have no sub for Councillor Whitaker on this occasion, but we are fine to progress. I think, do we have Sarah Hughes with us? I can't see. Yeah. So we have Sarah, obviously Beverly's here, and Mark joining us. Mark's not here yet. Okay, that could be slightly interesting. Mark's joined. Good. Okay. In terms of declarations of interest, anyone got any declarations of interest in relation to anything on the agenda? I see no hands. No, thank you very much. Any members of the public, Sean? No members of. Oh, okay. Okay, member of the public. Any? Would you like to speak, Mr. Duncan? Don't think so. Okay, thank you very much. I've got no announcements to make, so we'll move straight on to the minutes of the previous meeting. So, in relation to accuracy for the minutes, on page 1 of the minutes, page 4 of the pack, any issues? Page 2, so page 5, page 6, and page 7. So I'll happily sign those off then. And any matters arising in relation to those items on the minutes. So again, page 4, Councillor North, Michael. So page 4 on the pack. Page 5 on the pack. Page 6 on the pack. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to comment on, there's an item here about doctor surgeries, which I don't think they got any sensible response, but on a sort of related issue, it's not on the agenda and it's not on the previous minutes, is the issue of the health hub at the Biggleswade Hospital. And has this idea been completely dropped now? Has it been abandoned?
In answer, absolutely not. I think it is in progress, but it's not imminent. I think that's to say. So definitely not abandoned. It's on the medium-term financial plan. Councillor Dixon is going to give you more of a detailed update. I think probably maybe as well. So let's see.
Well, I wouldn't rely on me for detail, but broadly speaking, yeah, I mean, health hubs are very vogue, but I think the key thing to take away is they're driven by the health service. We will help and facilitate wherever we can, and that often means land holding. But I'm afraid it is entirely down to the appetite, shall we call it, of the health service to bring all these bits and pieces together. And as you know, we've got one under construction in Dunstable, and we have an ambition to push the NHS wherever feasible. But they've had a fair bit on recently, shall we say. So they've got lots of things to consider. It's very much on the agenda, but it's their agenda. And I think we'll keep you updated as much as we can, whenever we can, as when they give us the feedback.
Okay. Anything else then in relation to matters arising then? I think we've got to page 6, page 7, anybody? No, okay, thank you very much. So much rustling of papers. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. So we're going to start off with just a slight change to the agenda because Mark's got another commitment. I've agreed that we'll move the Highways annual plan to the beginning of the agenda. So I'm going to bring Mark Eaton in and your update, Mark, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. thank you for accommodating me, first of all. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'll give you an update on the highway works for the for 2023. So yeah, they'll be starting some of them in this financial year now, 22-23. Okay, so bear with me. Oh, it's changed a little bit. I don't know why. Is it going to work? Oh, sorry, I don't use Zoom very often. Sorry, bear with me a moment. Okay, give me a second. Ah, yeah, great. Right, can everyone see my screen? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, yes. So thank you. Sorry, it's a little bit different to Teams Zoom. Okay, so yeah, I'd to give an update on some of the schemes I talked about last time. Just to explain what I'm going to show you this time is some extent plans. I think it'd be really helpful for me to show you where the schemes are actually going to take place by showing you the maps. So yeah, we've got quite a lot of footway schemes planned. So as you can see, we've got 7 resurfacing schemes. First one we've got is Saffron Road. So we're doing both sides. And this one is here you can see this is a Sutton Avenue scheme. Again, we're doing both sides. And we're doing large scheme here, Stratton Way, doing again both sides of the footway. And Mill Lane, we're doing a block paved scheme here. So the key thing with this one is it's next to Hitchin Street, which has got block pavers, and at the moment Mill Lane just has a bitmac black top finish. And what we're working on with designer at the moment is to implement block pavers that will hopefully help to blend in with the rest of the town centre pavers. And we're also looking to remove guardrail where applicable. So there's 2 guardrail sites. There's one up where I think it's like an old carpet shop at number 16 to 18 Hitchin Street. We're looking to remove that because we think it's too narrow, that footway, and the way I see it is creating an accessibility issue at the moment. So the plan at the moment is to take that out. There's another one that's further down at the Till Road end, and we're going to do an assessment on that before we make a decision, because at the moment it's there as a deterrent to stop people walking across at a desire line. There is a crossing point a bit further down on Till Road. At the moment, that guardrail encourages people to walk down to that crossing point. So that one is under assessment, but the blue guardrail, we're very keen to remove that for accessibility reasons. It doesn't seem to have much road safety benefit at present, and in fact, it creates an obstruction for wheelchairs and pushchairs and the like. So that's what we're hoping to do. But yeah, I think that's going to be a nice town centre scheme, that one. And yeah, Kitelands Road, we're going to resurface both footways again, and Sun Street as well. Again, nice long scheme, both footways. And the last one there on the footways is Sandpiper Close. So yeah, so a lot of good footway schemes happening. So hopefully that's going to really encourage more sustainable travel and more walking exercise. And then I've got some updates. Carriageway resurfacing scheme. Now, I'm going to come on to a separate work stream in relation to Lawrence Road in a moment, but just to show you the extent of the carriageway resurfacing. So it's right from down just before the pub, down at the far western end, down near number 1, all the way through past the bend of Auckland Road down to Drove Road. So we're going to resurface the carriageway, and The other work stream that's relevant to this is there's an integrated transport scheme there. One of my colleagues, Lisa Wright, who unfortunately is off ill at the moment, she's been looking at a design to make it a one-way scheme, but to allow bicycles to be able to still go in both directions. So the plan is for that to go on site by January 2023. It will, just spoke to Steve Lakin before this meeting. He said a permanent traffic regulation order is being planned for that one. So Biggie told me as well, it's of note as well, he said it's going to be similar to two other schemes like this in Biggleswade, the Bulk and Back Street, he said. So again, one-way roads, but with the cycle contraflow, so they can still go both ways. So yeah, that one, with St Lawrence Road, though, that's mostly to do with signage. But what I'll be making sure when we do the carriageway resurfacing, we'll make sure that there's no road markings that in any way contradict that new design. So that's the plan for the Lawrence Road scheme. And rights of way, there's a scheme I spoke about before. We're doing a series of different bank repairs along the footpath. That's between Mill Lane and Jordan's Mill. And there was a question raised at the last meeting about flood alleviation under the A1 bypass. And the engineer who works for me, Chris Nichol, he was saying at present, there's no flood alleviation as part of the scope of his project. It's not been designed into that project. And he had a question that he wanted to put to yourselves, which was, is the flooding significant enough for it to warrant a feasibility study ahead of any potential flood alleviation measures? So maybe we can touch on that in a moment. But yeah, I thought I should give you just if these are the main schemes. There are some other schemes that are going to be taking place as well, but these are the major ones. I thought it'd be useful for me just to give you a bit of an idea about exactly what we're doing with those maps. So hopefully that was helpful. But yeah, that's the end of my presentation. So I'll stop sharing. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, please ask. And if I can't answer today, I'm more than happy to try and follow up afterwards.
Okay, I know I've got Councillor Russ. I'm sure it's going to be a question, Madeline, in relation to Mark's presentation. I look forward to hearing the question.
It's going to be an elucidation for Mark because he doesn't know the circumstances of the A1 underpass. So the flooding is caused by heavy rain, and the rain goes down into a dip in the path underneath the A1. So there doesn't seem to be any way for the water to escape the way it is at the moment. I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that you need Wellingtons to get through the underpass when there's been heavy rain. Even with walking shoes, it's not a good experience. And it tends to wash debris down so that it gets very muddy and gets bits of twiggage and all sorts under there. So that does need to be looked at. And I don't know what the solution might be, but it is important because it's the only way to get under the A1 if you're trying to walk from Biggleswade to Jordan's Mill. And then if I may ask a question, Chairman, when is the Town Council going to have a say on the Lawrence Road scheme? Because from the reaction around the table, Biggleswade councillors aren't terribly happy with what's being proposed at the moment.
Yeah, if I may, yeah. So I'm more than happy to try and facilitate something so that my colleague Lisa, when she returns from her illness, she can have a discussion. Who would it be best for her to speak with? Would it be yourself, Councillor Russell?
No, with the town clerk to organise some discourse between the Town Council and Central Beds on this. If you could go via Peter Tarrant, please.
Okay, thank you.
Just from my point of view, I'd be keen to understand sort of the extent of it, bearing in mind the sort of the implications of going one way on Lawrence Road. I think members would be keen to understand what the plan is, bearing in mind that the bulk is one way. Let's hope that both are going, if the proposal is they're going different directions, but then the implications of that are, so we just need to have some clarity on it.
I think if I might interrupt, the issue is that lots of the houses in Lawrence Road don't have off-road parking. So is this scheme going to take away the parking that's there? And if so, what sort of solution might we find?
Yes, I think that you're quite right. So anything around the whole project, and certainly it needs to be fully considered so that the town council are briefed and supporters of what's going on. So for me, I've got another question in relation to Sun Street. You mentioned about the pathways, the pavement resurfacing. I'm keen to understand a little bit more about the work that's happening on the carriageway resurfacing and sort of the timescales on that, given the sort of the recent challenges around. My understanding is around the communication of that to residents. So, Mark, perhaps I don't know whether you're in a position to answer that, but we'd be keen to understand a bit about that. Bearing in mind, if you're doing resurfacing work on the pavements, what's happening with the carriageway as well?
Yeah, the carriageway, I'll have to come back to that. I think there's been some delays with the scheme, but as far as I'm aware, there's shouldn't be any plans for it to not happen. Because I think it was part of a different batch of works that we were doing with a different contractor from Ringway Jacobs. So.
Okay, well, that's fine. Perhaps you could come back to us. I think this is a project that had commenced, but there was some concern from residents about the communication of the closure of the road via letter. Many residents don't appear to have had the communication, so it appears that then, as a result of feedback from residents or other reasons, I'm not absolutely sure, but as a result of it, the project hasn't continued for now. So I'd be keen, I think everybody here would be keen to understand what's happening with that. You mentioned about, can I just, and just one other thing in relation to Kitelands, you talked about the pavement resurfacing. Are we in a position to sort of make any progress on the surface on Kitelands? Because the road surface itself, from my recollection at least, is not in a great position. Seems to be doing, we're resurfacing the pavements, but the main carriageway is not in a great condition.
Okay, I can look at the condition data for that one. Yeah, at the moment, yeah, we're just planning to do the footway for this financial year. So a decision on resurfacing it will be subject to review in terms of yeah, what we can deliver for future years. But yeah, thank you for making me aware of that issue. Just on the Sun Street, I know that there was a section where it was quite narrow there. So I know there was an issue with the machinery, and there was the fear that the vehicle, as it went along, it would be stretching over the footway. And there were some concerns about how that would impact pedestrians. So I don't know if that's part of the problem, but because I know that one of my counterparts, a project manager, was looking to resolve that issue. So it may be that there's still a bit more communication to do around the issue around the footway space. It could be the part of the problem there.
Okay, well, that's fine. Perhaps we can leave you to look into that. I've got Councillor Bond and then Councillor Knight.
I was only trying to explain when you mentioned Kitelands and the road, maybe at a later date, at the next meeting, or two things. We can maybe get Lisa Wright here to actually discuss Lawrence Road. Secondly, Mark might be able to give you a better understanding of the way we prioritise the resurfacing of roads and footpaths and the way it's handled, because it isn't just done randomly, it's done by an assessment of their condition. So maybe Mark will be able to give us a better idea of that, maybe at next meeting.
Yes, yeah, I think it'd be helpful because I could talk about the scheme selection process and how we use data, and then we apply other factors such as where all of the local infrastructure is, such as shops and businesses and emergency services, and what's helpful is when you look at the maps that I showed earlier, you can actually see like how close some of these footways are to places that are going to generate a lot of footfall. So that's why we think in terms of managing risks to safety, it's important to look at where we've got footways that are being used to access key services and businesses and so on. So yeah, I think you're right, Councillor. Thank you. It's a really good suggestion. If I talk a bit more about the process and how we use all the reactive maintenance history repairs, we can see where there are defects already that require a lot of attention, a lot of extra revenue being spent on them, and also we look at road classification to help us understand where traffic is being distributed on the roads as well. So yeah, I think it would be helpful because it gives a good insight into the process, which would apply again when we start to assess roads like Kiteland Road in the future.
Okay, that's helpful, Mark. Thank you very much. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So thanks for the report, Mark. I think, as the chairman said, it's really one to take away. But just to reiterate what the chairman said, a number of businesses and residents on Sun Street claim that they weren't given any notice that they wouldn't have access to their properties, and at least one business had to shut for 2 days. And again, they claimed they didn't receive any notification. So I don't know whether, what the truth of the situation is, but if we can make sure that residents definitely do receive a letter if they're going to have access restricted in some way for the duration of the works, I think that's really important, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think there's been a few lessons learned with that one. If it's the same one you're describing, I know it was this section where basically, because we were using a different contractor to do the works, and that's no excuse, but just in terms of the practicality of it, it was a case where the contractor showed up with this machinery and then the problem was discovered. So yeah, better planning really would have resolved that. So lessons have been learned from it. So yeah, appreciate the issues created. But yeah, we are working to improve things going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ramsey.
Good afternoon, Mark. Back in the day, and I'm not sure if it was in your time or somebody else's, but we used to get a report, a landscape report this size, and it used to put on it all the roadworks that were going to be done in the next 12 months. Now, I know it included all of your area, so I wouldn't expect anybody to sit there and filter out Biggleswade. But if you could send that to us, we would be quite happy just to work out which ones were Biggleswade and which ones, so that if any residents ask, or we have got the information in front of us and be able to say, yes, that is going to be done. We can't give them exact dates, but to let them know that Central Beds are aware of it and it's on their programme to be done. That would be a great help, and it would stop a lot of the questions that we get being asked. And we don't want to sit here and say, I don't know, it's down to Central Beds. It would be so much easier if we could have some sort of plan. Did you think that's possible?
I'll have a chat with my colleague Jack. He came to one of the previous meetings. It was the one where the fire alarm caused problems, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll talk to my colleague Jack. He's the communications manager, and about how we can put something together. Yeah,
I mean, we would be quite happy to filter it out. I'm not expecting anybody to do that, but we could filter that out for ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Russell and Beverley. Just a second. No, so Beverley, over to you.
Hi, Mark. Thanks, Beverley.
Hi, Beverley. How are you?
Good, thank you. I was on secondment in highways the last year, so that's fine. We publish the annual plan on our website, don't we, which lists the upcoming schemes by location and by quarter. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was a reference to like a paper copy before, but now it's all electronic. The annual plan's being published, but I'll see. Yeah, like I said, I'll talk to my colleague about the way it's going to be shared with yourselves, so that you get more information, so that you can share as well. We've got like an Excel workbook but I don't know if that's what you mean, or you wanted something that was more like a inside report.
It was Excel that we had, and it was this.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's the annual.
I'm
Yep,
just
you'll get that.
conscious we've got lots of hands. So in terms of the document with the plan, if we can have that, maybe if it can be sent to the clerk, that would be helpful, and then we can then filter it. Sian, is this your comment in relation to this subject?
Yes, it is. So the annual hours plan for 21-22. But it doesn't
Perfect. Okay, so it's not published yet, but it will be in due course. So, Mark, if you can get that sent to the town clerk, that would be fantastic. Okay, Councillor Russell.
Going back to the plans for footways, I'm delighted that you're removing the blue railings on Mill Lane.
Good.
The problem where the railings are on the corner of Peel Road is that the footway slopes in several different directions. It's very difficult to walk around that corner. So I'm assuming if you're going to be resurfacing it, it will all be very level and very easy to walk. Personally, I'd be in favour of taking away the railings because I don't think that's necessarily a desire line. People tend to cross the other side of Mill Lane from what I've seen. So,
Okay.
but if I can just finish, you talked about using paviours. So are we talking about using paviours for the footways, but still having tarmac on the road?
So this is just for Mill Lane. The other ones will have the darker bitumen surface, but because Mill Lane effectively is just off from the main town centre, I saw an opportunity to basically try to make it feel like it's more part of that town centre, because it's only a short scheme really down to Till Road. So the idea was just for that section, for both sides, to have like there'll be similar pavers, if not the same, but red block paviours. And when we've got vehicular crossovers, we'll make sure that they're on a solid base, and we might have to try different surface material there, just because otherwise the block pavers may become loose as the vehicles go over them. So, but we're working on the design right now. So if there's any particular comments you have, I can always pass them on to designer. I will pass on that comment about the levelling. That's really helpful.
And if I may come back a moment, it's just the thought of having paviours on the footway and then black tarmac in the middle, which isn't like the town centre. I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
If you could be thinking about then putting paviours in Mill Lane at some point in the future on the roadway, then that would be very good.
Yeah, I'm not at the moment. It's just the footways. I know what you're saying, because on Hitchin Road it's the carriageway as well. It's a different type of design. What we're just trying to do is trying to blend it in more with the town centre, so it feels a bit more connected rather than to have the exact same aesthetic. But it's just, the idea is just to kind of complement that footway there, because I know there's a pub on that road as well, and I thought it'd be quite good for them just to get a bit more business as people come around the corner and just make the area more presentable. So at the moment it's not in the scope of the project, but thanks for those comments.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Now, Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So block paving sounds quite good in that area. A recurring problem we have in the town is where we do have block paving. Quite often utility companies come along and have to do some underground maintenance and dig things up. And when they finish the works and restore, often we find it's replaced with tarmac. Are you able to advise, is there an expectation that utility companies do return the surface to its original form? And if they don't, what process should we follow to make sure corrective action is taken place?
Yeah, I can explain that process. Yeah, I've been talking to the area teams to help to monitor what's happening in terms of repairs. But the issues, as I see them, is twofold. One, we've got some issues I know up near Market Square with tree roots pushing up some of the block pavers there. I've been talking to the area team about how we take that forward, and there's some suggestions about potentially replanting some of the trees of different species, and then putting a permeable paviour or material rather around the trees to make it more sustainable, but and also improve the aesthetic I know there's issues with some of the corduroy pavers, you know, the ones with the lines on Hitchin Road. I know that they've become cracked and dislodged, and I want to work more closely with the area teams to make sure they put in the right solutions, because essentially they need to lay the pavers on a new concrete bed to make them stronger and guard them off for a while it all sets in. So I think there's some things we can do in terms of what you're talking about with the utility companies. The process at the moment is when utility companies do an excavation, they're allowed to do a temporary reinstatement for the first 6 months. It's where the legislation is set under the new Road and Street Works Act 1991. And then after 6 months, they're allowed to go back and put a permanent reinstatement, which then has a 2-year guarantee period. If within that 2-year guarantee period it's found to have failed, the local authority is able to send a notice to the utility company, and they then have to go back and do a reinstatement. So if they haven't done it to the same specification, sometimes it is because they are going to go back. As a temporary reinstatement, they've dug up the old cables or pipes, and they're going to go back in 6 months, redo it, put new pipes in, and then resurface it. And it's a case of having to monitor it, and it's something that the Street Works team are involved with. So I'll pass on the concerns from the Town Council regarding monitoring utility works in Biggleswade. But yeah, so that's the arrangement at the moment, and it's always a frustration because if they kind of aren't monitored closely enough, but unfortunately sometimes problems do occur, and that's one thing. As an asset manager, I'm very interested in making sure that we address.
It's really helpful. Thanks. It's good to understand the rules. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bond.
Just on a last note, do you have any news about any program to upgrade and replace light columns?
Yes, yeah, we're doing a lot of street lighting works. If I can find it in a moment, I could quickly show you a plan I've got actually that shows where all the schemes are taking place, including in hang on a minute. Sorry, I just got in the map ready. Yeah, I can show you this. This is really helpful because you'll be able to see where we're putting in new street lights. So these will be LED luminaires and new columns. So they will be structurally sound. They'll last minimum of 25 years, and they're going to really make a big difference in terms of illuminating the different areas. Oh God. I've got too many files open. Here it is. Here we go. Can you see the screen okay? I can't tell with Zoom, so easily.
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Great. So I'll zoom in a bit so you can see a little more detail. So yeah, so these areas we're putting in new street lights, and yeah, they're energy efficient. They will be compatible with the new central management system that we're moving to, which will allow us to control the street lights from a central system, which is good in terms of checking energy billing is correct, because we can get a better idea of exactly how much electricity we've used, and also it allows us to make adjustments. So if residents are saying the lighting is too dim or too bright, we can make adjustments from an application. So it's a great new piece of technology that we're implementing all around the authority. So all of these new street lights, they can be made compatible. So we just got to fit on these new nodes on top of the NEMA sockets that are at the very top of the luminaire, the light. So and we're going to roll this out. So probably in about 5 years' time, you'll see that central, all the street lights, hopefully in central Bedfordshire, will have been upgraded. They'll have they'll have a better control around them as well. So that's certainly our aspiration for a lot of the urban areas such as Biggleswade. So yeah, and we've just invested a lot of money in new luminaires that we've got in stock now. So the future is bright, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that incredible pun. Much appreciated. Okay, Mark, I think we'll probably at a point where we can conclude your contribution. That's really helpful, though. I think it's a good update for us. Thank you. So with that in mind, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the item in relation to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee proposals and then the adopted street as well. So Isaac and
Thanks, Chair. So we're holding 2 events on Thursday the 2nd of June and Sunday the 5th of June. The former running in the evening and including the lighting of the gas beacon. There'll be food and drink refreshments provided by local businesses and numerous live music acts to be announced as well. On the Sunday, we're looking to run a larger scale street party style celebration involving as many local businesses as we can get onto the square, alongside several music acts, amusement rides, face painting, straw bales and more. We've started the marketing campaign. We've secured a full page advertisement in the bulletin on page 7, and this will be followed up with posters up in the shops, and they're all very much on board to start doing that and more. And then any street party applications are being supported by us, and we're signposting residents to our general inbox through the website. That's it for the Jubilee.
Councillor Ramsey.
How many applications for street parties have you received?
We've had 2.
Only 2.
Thank you. Councillor Bond.
Have we publicised these street parties, and what is the timescale for getting approval from Central Beds to be able to actually close these roads?
I'm aware on the CBC website the road closure deadline is the 6th of May. And if you could repeat the other part of your question, sorry, Councillor Bond.
No, I'm saying, have we publicised it?
It should be on the website, yeah. It should be
Because
up to date.
obviously, if the 6th of May is the deadline you're saying to actually do the application to CBC for the road closure, people need to get on with that if they intend to actually hold street parties.
Okay.
Just as a follow-up, so I think it's important that we use any communication methods that we have. So whether it's the website, whether it's the Facebook page, whether it means whether individual councillors have got their own pages that they can publicise things. But it's important, I think, for residents to understand the implications if they want to have a party, knowing the timescales, and at least to have the road formally closed.
And maybe Town Council could produce something to send to the Chronicle for publication next week.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions in relation to the Jubilee? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. So the next then is the Adopt a Street Biggleswade initiative.
So Susanna Rice and I have been in regular contact regarding the litter picking initiative and how BTC can support her. We've supported the Riverside Clean on Sunday the 10th of April and provided litter pickers, bag hoops and such. We're in the process of organising a meeting with the Adopt a Street initiative and Plastic Free Biggleswade. There's been some personal issues with both parties, so we've not been able to hold the meeting as of yet. But we'll be looking to produce a calendar of one-off events through the year that councillors and officers can support with. And this isn't just to include litter picks, but it'll also be engagement events and perhaps a stall on the market in collaboration with a local business supporting sustainability and any other ideas that come to the table during the meeting.
Excellent. From my own personal point of view, I'm part of the Adopt a Street, and I've got Saxon Drive and Saxon Park as part of my adopted areas, and it's actually for me really good, not just for myself, but it's actually getting my daughter involved and actually then seeing the sort of the benefits and just doing the repeat. So I think the more we can publicise this, the more Susanna gets support. The benefit of personally, but also that the streets just look tidier. The downside of it, of course, is when you've done an area and you go back, it's a continuing challenge, if you like. But what you also notice is the fact that there are some areas of the town that are perhaps not getting the attention they might otherwise have got. So certainly beneficial if as many people as possible are able to support it. Of course, there's going to be the challenge around why is there the need for this initiative? And also, I guess, where does the responsibility lie officially with regard to keeping the streets clean? But ultimately, if residents are able to support it and keep their own areas clean, essentially that's what Adopt a Street's about, isn't it? It's about adopting your own street and doing your bit towards the town, which means that then perhaps there are there's space or time for council workers to be able to carry out the cleaning in other areas, if you like. So certainly, I think we've done a good job supporting it with the support of the Councillor Whittaker's grant. I think it's been helpful to be able to do that. And I attended the River Clean. And I thought it was really, really good to actually have that. I think it was around about 30 people in the end were involved in it. 26 kilos of rubbish along that on that day collected, which is in a very small period of time. Really, is quite good. So I've got nothing else to add. Anyone else want to comment? Okay, thank you for that. So the next item on the agenda then is the key infrastructure projects updates. Beverly's going to talk us through those. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll have an update on the HIF programme and the various elements of that. The overall programme remains on schedule. For the substation project, I know that the minutes from the last meeting referred to some additional paperwork that was going to be submitted for the planning application, which I think was received, because actually the planning consent has been received for that site now. The team are working to discharge the planning conditions, and the supergrid transformer routes continue to be progressed to identify an approved route. For the Lindsell's Bridge project, Story Contracting are working on the detailed design to enable fabrication to commence. And again, the team are working to discharge the planning conditions on that project. The education project, the feasibility study has actually been extended, and they have provided the necessary information to Homes England. And the station interchange, the interface between this project and the Network Rail Access for All scheme is being discussed. Galliford Try have undertaken a site clearance to avoid the bird nesting season, and construction is due to commence at the end of June. So that's the updates on those projects. If there are any questions that I can feedback.
Okay, I've got no hands up. I'm going to ask specifically about the education project, Beverly, and I hesitate trying to put you on the spot here, but clearly the education project relates to the secondary school and the implications of that. And are you in a position where you are able to give us an update, or is that something that needs to come back on?
I will need to come back on that, yeah. But happy to arrange that for next time.
I appreciate that. I was perhaps acting as a Biggleswade advocate in this particular one, as opposed to having my Central Beds councillor hat on. But Madeline, did you want to comment?
Yes, moving on from the education, I just wanted to say that it would appear that the transport interchange project, Central Beds are working well with Network Rail from the meetings that Councillor Bond and I attend. And I was delighted to hear Nick Shaw say that the interchange will be completed by next spring. So I hope that's the timescale you've got, Beverly, but that was certainly what was said to that meeting. It was good.
We do have a meeting following this afternoon to get an update on that. So yeah, I can confirm obviously next time, but yeah, as far as I'm aware, yeah, everything's on schedule. If I move on to the Moves Festival, we haven't completed I haven't seen the complete report yet, it hasn't been completed. So, and we also need to do a bit of consultation on that. So just as an update, you know, the events went fairly well. They weren't massively well attended, but our team were actually out on the streets and in the town centre, and managed to share the link and get some good comments coming through on the survey website. So the feedback at the moment just seems to be very positive. Next steps are we're analysing all the feedback, and we should be in a position to come back with more detail at our next committee meeting.
Any members, any questions? Nope. Okay. So perhaps on to the next one then, Beverly.
Yeah, no further update on Stratton Business Park. Things are really at the same position as in the last committee. Tritex are on site building out phase 2. And there are still 3 of the units are showing as availability. 1 unit is pre-sold. And they have a marketing brochure and link to a live photos of the site, so you can see the progress of the build out. That's the only other update I have on Stratton.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
Going off at a slight tangent, and I have been on the Tritex site. I was invited to the sod cutting, which is always very exciting. The question I have is that at that sod cutting, I spoke to Councillor Kevin Collins about the planning for Stratton Business Park and the fact that Central Beds have taken to themselves special planning powers, which is okay. It's not obviously not what the town council would want, because we're then not a statutory consultee. However, what I asked Kevin Collins was, would it be possible at least for when a planning decision is made that the town council is notified? Because in the past, we found out what's going on Stratton Business Park through articles in the Chronicle or you know, other means. So could I formally record now, please, from this committee that the town council be notified when a planning decision is made? Councillor Collins was going to go and speak to Andrew Davey. I don't know whether that's taken place, but can we please ask for that formally? Just to be kept informed, no more.
I think that's absolutely right. I've got a question in relation to this specifically, and it is a specific, but I noticed, and I usually forget the name of this company, but Dewars, there are signs up for Dewars as having sold their building, which is the building that is right on the, sort of backs onto the retail park, backs onto Lidl, and I'm, I guess, keen to understand, given that Central Beds have these planning powers, whether there is any link to that particular project or not. I appreciate that it's probably one of those things it's commercial and you're not going to do it specifically, but I'm keen to understand, is Central Beds looking at changing the plans for the business park to allow further extension of retail on the basis that we've currently got retail backing onto that particular site? Smith Metals also have relocated, as I understand. So keen to understand if they've relocated and Dewars are relocating, is there a link between that or not? Or is it merely a coincidence? I think as committee members and the town, we would be keen to understand what might or might not be happening. If there is something, appreciate, Beverly, you're probably not in a position to answer that directly, but would certainly want to understand that. Councillor Russell.
I think that's a very good point you've raised, because the more retail there is there, the more difficult it's going to be for the town centre. And I think we do need to understand, because when Stratton Business Park was first envisaged, there was going to be no retail at all. Then we had Halefords and Pets, and now we've got Lidl, and the retail is creeping, and it does obviously have an effect on the town centre. So it's really knowing what's happening after planning applications, but it's also knowing if Central Beds are changing the overall remit of Stratton Business Park.
I think that's the key point, really. Is there a change? If there isn't, that's fine. But if there is, we would appreciate knowing that that's the case. And I guess there's this element of, how can I put it, restaurants and leisure. Currently, there are no official places to eat on the retail park, although we do have Costa and we do have the cafe in Marks and Spencer's. And obviously at McDonald's as well. So again, there's a little bit of creep. So keen to understand with other areas where there is retail development, there tends to follow other leisure. And again, keen to understand whether that is the case or is it or not. So appreciate you can't answer that
Certainly
question.
take that away, yes, and
Okay.
come back next time, yeah.
Members, any other questions? Nope. Okay. In which case, I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Biggleswade Neighbourhood Plan update. Beg your pardon. Yeah, sorry, library. So I'll get ahead of myself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sarah's going to update on the library consultation.
Right, thank you. So this was really just to draw your attention really to the library consultation, which opened on the 14th of March and closes on Sunday, the 5th of June. So it's open for 12 weeks. And the proposal is to reconfigure and refurbish the library to provide a more modern facility. So the proposal includes significant building improvements, including new furniture, shelving, dedicated study zone within the library. And the existing garage area is proposed to be converted into the children's centre, and a new registration office is proposed to be created just inside the entrance. Full details of the consultation are on our consultation pages. And I think in future meetings, I'll make sure that part of the agenda lists all the ongoing consultations that are live, to make sure that you're aware and can promote them. Once the consultation period is closed, the results will obviously be analysed and a report will be prepared for executive to decide on the next steps. So should be able to bring an update on the reconfiguration of the library at, I think, the October meeting. And may I also, because I was asked sort of last minute, just to again draw your attention to the engine idling survey as well, which we've had a huge response to, but it would be great to make sure as many areas are responding. The engine idling survey is a response to new legislation that we've adopted that allows us to take enforcement action if drivers leave their engine idling or running unnecessarily when stationary. But the law requires us to take a measured approach to any action we take. So we want to be clear as to what action needs to be taken, where, when, and why. So understanding where it might be a problem is really important to that sort of measured approach. Again, the link is on the website, responses by the 30th of April. So yeah, just really to bring your attention to those consultations. But as I say, I think in future meetings, we'll make sure they're listed on the agenda.
Perfect, Sarah. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Russell.
Well, I think, Sarah, you'll be pleased to know that the Town Council has formally considered the library consultation and is in support of what's being proposed. So that consultation has been dealt with by the formal body of the Town Council. And as far as engine idling is concerned, I have responded as an individual, and I've highlighted some places where it is a problem. And it tends to be outside takeaways, where somebody stays in the car and somebody else gets out to go into the takeaway, and particularly at Greg's on the Market Square, and leave the engine running for no apparent reason. And I think it's becoming more and more of a problem. And it's also a problem that people don't seem to understand that if they get out of the driving seat and they've left the engine running, it is actually against the law. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a woman do that with 2 young children in the car, and it frightens you to death. But anyway, I've responded to that as an individual, and I'd encourage colleagues to do that. But we've formally responded as a Town Council to agree the changes to the library.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, members, any other comments, questions in relation to that item? Nope. Okay. Right then, thank you very much, Beverly, much appreciated, your contribution. So we're now going to move on to the neighbourhood plan update. Councillor Russell.
I'll try not to talk too long about this. Where we are at the moment is that the plan is with the planning inspector for the examination. So we wait to see where we go with that. He's asked 2 or 3 technical questions, and he's asked for responses from both Central Bedfordshire and the Town Council. The Town Council has gone to its advisor, Dave Chetwin, who was the planner who's written the plan for us, the technical side of it. And he has already produced an answer which has gone back to the inspector. So we wait on the inspector whether there are going to be any more questions, or his report will probably come through by the end of May. And we hope that it'll be a recommendation to go to referendum, in which case we'll be waiting on Central Bedfordshire to announce when they can organise the referendum. I'm slightly disappointed that it's taken as long as it has, because I didn't really want a referendum in July, you know, moving towards the holiday period, but that looks as if that's where we'll be if we get the recommendation to go to referendum. But otherwise, we did our formal consultation. Central Bedfordshire have done their formal 6-week consultation. All of the responses have gone to the inspector, and we just wait to see what happens.
Okay, members, any questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Russell. Okay, so the next item on the agenda then is a marketplace workshop planning meeting. Beverly and Corinne, between you.
We haven't rehearsed a double act for this, have we, Corinne? Shall I just give a bit of an update of where we are? I think so. The last time we would have been speaking about this, we have actually postponed the plans to actually get together in the meantime and run the workshop. In light of some of the new funding that's just been announced by government, which I can give you a quick overview on, we have discussed between ourselves and with Councillor Russell, Councillor Knight, that it makes more sense to have more of a sort of holistic approach to town centre regeneration, you know, looking at that at the workshop rather than sort of as a piecemeal, just looking at the Section 106 funding. So we have had a discussion about how we can go about that. Councillor Russell, I think, is going to discuss with our members on how to take that forward. So that is where we are at the moment. What has been announced by government, in fact, the last week or so, under the levelling up agenda. So we have news about 2 funding streams. If you bear with me. Sorry, Karim, was there anything else that you wanted to say specifically about the workshop plans?
Thanks, Beverly. Just to say that, yeah, essentially the output for the workshop, we're hoping to produce or working to produce an agreed set of joint place shaping priorities for the town, which will include looking at Market Square, Century House, Sustainable Transport Corridor, the east of Biggleswade, London Road, Stratton Business Park, Home Farm, amongst other priorities, if you like, to ensure we can improve on strategic planning and delivery.
Okay. It seems to me that this it should include all key stakeholders. So with that in mind, I appreciate that you've had the conversations between Councillor Knight, Councillor Russell and the town council staff. I guess consider what other individuals might be beneficial to that conversation, yeah. And also have a sort of a key involvement and understanding of what's needed as well. So whatever that looks like.
Just to say that the workshop we're looking at is for town and ward councillors in the first instance. Whether we need to go any further with other stakeholders will become clearer, but we need to try and get all of the ideas on the table and then see what the practical things are to take forward, particularly if there's money to be bid for in various ways, whether it's Section 106 money or the government money that we're bidding for. So it's starting off with, if you like, the people who know the town.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Is there anything else that we want to say in relation to that? Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll then move on to the... Sorry
to interrupt. Did you want me just to very quickly mention the funding that we were looking at there?
Yep. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so as I said, under the government levelling up agenda, there's 2 funds have been announced. Firstly, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, And the allocations were announced last week by government, and Central Bedfordshire as a whole will be receiving £3.6 million over the next 3 years for regeneration schemes aimed at reviving communities, tackling economic decline. There is also an additional element to improve numeracy and literary skills and regenerate our high streets. So we have to pull together sort of an investment plan. Timescales are very, very short. End of June to put some plans together. And they will be under the 3 investment priorities of community in place, supporting local businesses, and people and skills. So the investment should enhance levelling up, like the other levelling up fund investments, similar to the project that we are running in Houghton Regis. Certainly needs a partnership approach, and also sort of in reference to MP constituency areas as well. So we will keep in contact with you about that. It's all happening very quickly. And actually Levelling Up Fund, the second tranche of Levelling Up Fund has been announced, which is a 4.8 billion fund nationally to support town centre high street regeneration. The maximum project size is 20 million, and there can be 1 bid per MP area and 1 transport bid. So again, working up our bids from a long list at the moment. Deadline is the 6th of July for bids, and we do have the Biggleswade Sustainable Transport Corridor in mind as one of our projects. The Sustainable Transport Corridor, which is what we started discussing about at the Moves Festival. So outputs and outcomes are jobs created, skills achieved, qualifications achieved, commercial space, business confidence, air quality, traffic and cycle flows, cultural visits. So it's a very quick whistle-stop tour of those 2 projects that we want to sort of bear in mind for more of a holistic approach for regeneration in town centres.
Okay, before I comment, anyone else want to comment? Any thoughts? Okay, I will then. In relation to that, it seems quite clear that there is some funding that can come forward. We need to have, as a town, have these sort of projects in mind. So if there's something ready that can, when these funding opportunities come, and I think we're probably not quite there yet. And I think that whole conversation around the markets, the marketplace workshop, and everything around the town centre and all the link here. We've got to have that conversation sooner rather than later to take advantage of these funding opportunities. We don't want to miss the boat, but at the same time, I appreciate you can't turn around a project and work out the costings in such a short period of time. Hence the reason, I guess, the Sustainable Transport Corridor is one that perhaps it ticks the box more so than perhaps some of the other more specific local works. I think it's really important that as a joint committee and as ward and town council members, we're clear on what we want to do and work collaboratively to get these things tied up as soon as possible. Because the thing is, in Biggleswade, we've got lots of things that are all they're a bit piecemeal, aren't they? And everything's coming together. Lots of consultations, and it's not all together. And I think we've got to get that so that we can have some clear projects that work for us. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Can I come in on that particular element, Shared Prosperity Fund? And just going back a step, as you know, I'm a ward member for Langford. I think I said last time, I'd welcome the opportunity to be part of your workshop, plus also sit in the cabinet alongside Ian. So it's always useful if I can be advocating your case, because obviously Langford radiates towards Biggleswade. And I think it's an important part of how you shape for the future that you consider that sort of hub and spoke concept. So if you wouldn't mind inviting me to that, then it'll keep hopefully a finger on the pulse with Ian of where this is coming. And you're absolutely right. The more you've got on the shelf ready to go, the better. We find that time and time again. It's a bit of an oxymoron. You've got to have thought about it without the funding before you can actually get the funding. But that's the way it works, I'm afraid. So the more that we can have thought of, be ready to go with, and bang, straight on the table, the more chance of getting ahead of the curve. If you're prepared to let me come along, I don't bite too much.
We'd love to have you, Steve.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. So then we'll conclude that item. So the next item then is the work plan. I think, Sarah, you're going to talk us through that. No, not there. Okay, well, we'll talk through the work plan then. So you have the work plan in front of you, and it's pretty, as we've come up with a formula, so you'll see what's in July, and you'll see what's in October and January, etc. And they're all pretty much the same thing. So I'm just conscious that we do want to have updates on these things. It's important that we do have those. So without labouring the point, I think it's probably going to be really helpful for us to consider as well, what else do we want from the joint committee? Because if we're only talking about the same few things each time, it can get a little bit, whilst it's interesting, it can get a little bit mundane, a bit boring. I think we need to have something that makes it a little bit more interactive, more interesting, and actually something that's going to be, more importantly, of real benefit for the town. So I think probably now isn't the time to necessarily do that. But from my point of view, whether I'm obviously chairing now, whether I'm chairing next year or not, I think it's important for the joint committee that we make the most of this opportunity where we've got town councillors and ward members and officers here in the chamber to talk about things that are useful, and that these things are, but I think there are bigger opportunities. So perhaps Councillor Russell, you and I, if we can have a conversation around that, what that looks like. But happy to maybe next meeting, if we've had some conversations around what it could look like, maybe think about then next meeting having it on the agenda so that and make enough time to discuss it. I think today we probably haven't got enough time to do that, but other times I think we should. Quite difficult to do that perhaps in a public forum necessarily, but I think it's important that we understand what we want from it. I very much want to get benefit out of these meetings. I don't want to necessarily come to a meeting and already know the answers to what's coming up. And for some of us, we'll already know, and it's important that we're able to share things, but also learn things as well, and actually take things forward for Biggleswade. So that's perhaps the way I'm thinking. But in terms of the the work plan, obviously you can see we've got the sort of the same items on there. We've got schools for the future on there. We've got, obviously we've spoken about section 106 and sort of plans spent for the next meeting, and obviously got community engagement at the next meeting. But generally they're the same thing. So let's have a think about it. And if there are other items that you as members want to bring forward to the committee, and that we think we should be talking about, perhaps if you can email or contact Councillor Russ and myself, and we'll certainly consider it for the next meeting and going forward.
Can I just say that we need to pick up what we've talked about in these meetings as well. So one of the things I'd like to see on our next meeting is an update on Stratton Business Park and what the plans are for that. And I mean, overall, I'd like to see the two councils working more closely together on the grand plans for Biggleswade and where we might be going. And I hesitate to say this, but there may be sometimes a need for exempt sessions, because as you just alluded to, you can't discuss everything in public the whole time. And I think, you know, if we're going to work together better as a team and try to get this big picture for Biggleswade, we need to think about that side of things as well.
Agreed. It's always a dilemma, isn't it? There's sort of there's transparency, but how transparent? I don't mean not to hide things, but I think there are clearly commercial decisions that need to be made as well. So it's not to hide things from residents, absolutely not. But there are sometimes where there are discussions that need to be had that will benefit long term, and for us to be able to consider various options without it becoming a big challenge, if you like. I think it's important that we look at ideas for the town, and then those ideas then are brought forward formally, without it being a sort of a pressure on us to deliver certain things. We're looking to do that, but it needs to be more considered, I think. So absolutely, I think that's perhaps one thing we can think about, but certainly can take that forward, with at the same time not wanting to not be transparent, because I think that's important as well. So okay, anybody got any other comments, anything you want to talk about within the work plan? Nope. Okay, in which case I will conclude the meeting. Thank you very much.